Hi everyone, welcome back to lesson 3 of your social media marketing module, which is going to be on Twitter marketing. The agenda for today's lesson is we'll first begin with an introduction to Twitter, then we'll understand the various terminology that will be used in Twitter marketing, Twitter lists and trends, how do we use Twitter marketing for brand awareness, how do we use it for lead generation, how do we use social media for listening and monitoring, how do we manage responses on social media, ads on Twitter, analytics that Twitter gives you to measure the performance of your Twitter marketing efforts, and tools that you can use to make your Twitter marketing effective. We'll talk about 4 tools: Crowdfire, Tweeted, Hashtagify, and Warble. We'll go into each one of them and understand hands-on how do we use them for Twitter marketing. So let's get started with an introduction to the platform. What exactly is Twitter? As I've always said, in order to be able to market effectively on a platform, you first need to understand the characteristic of the platform and the nature of its audience. If you don't know the platform and the reason why the audience is there on it, it would be very difficult to market on the platform effectively. So let's get started and understand a little bit about what Twitter exactly is. Those of you who are pros at Twitter might find the first 10-15 minutes a little slow, but please bear with me because I have to bring all of you up to speed, especially those of you who are new to Twitter. So the first thing, Twitter is a microblogging platform. When you say microblogging, you mean blogging in short form. Now we all know what blogs are. Blogs have been around for a really long time. Blogs are articles written on the web where people originally express their thoughts in verbal form on the internet. Microblogging is basically blogging in short form. So people expressing their thoughts, views, opinions, but in limited words and characters. So that's what Twitter is about. That's what Twitter was originally started as. It was originally a microblogging platform. Next, Twitter is for real-time updates and news. Twitter is still a much more real-time platform as compared to the other social media platforms out there. Facebook also has kind of become real-time these days with people sharing news and updates. But when it comes to being absolutely real-time, Twitter still takes the cake. So Twitter is a platform where people share news and updates as and when they happen. It's almost live. Next, and something very important, Twitter is for opinions and opinionated people. This is a very important characteristic of the Twitter audience. The audience on Twitter is open to sharing their opinions on Twitter in public. This characteristic of Twitter makes it a very important platform for marketers when it comes to listening and monitoring. People share opinions not only about their thoughts in everyday life and events that are happening around them, they also share their opinions about brands, about products and services they've used, and this helps marketers listen in on those opinions to understand what people are saying about the brand, what is the general brand perception in the target audience's minds. Another important characteristic of Twitter is that it is a public platform. Unlike most other platforms where whatever you share gets shared with your friends, Facebook, for example, when we share something by default, it gets shared with our friends. Twitter, on the other hand, the default setting is that when you share something, when you tweet, it is public. All tweets are public unless you change your settings to make it otherwise, right? So Twitter is a platform where people publicly express what they want to say. So now that we understood the characteristics of Twitter as a platform and the nature of its audience, let's understand what makes it different from other social platforms out there. Why is Twitter different? The first thing that sets Twitter apart from other social media platforms out there is the 140 character limit that you have on Twitter. Tweets on Twitter, messages that you post on Twitter are limited to 140 characters. No other platform has such a strictly imposed character limit. In fact, this is one of the characteristics of Twitter, which Twitter users who are the most active really love about the platform. They love and enjoy the 140 character limit, the fact that you have to say whatever you want to say within that limit. You have to get creative with your words. You have to be brief, concise, and to the point. Next, as we discussed, Twitter, unlike other social networks, is a public platform. Whatever you share on Twitter is public. And third, and very importantly, the feed on Twitter is only partly algorithmic. Unlike most social platforms which have moved to an algorithmic feed, Facebook, for example, if you guys remember, we've seen in lesson 1, Facebook has an algorithm in its news feed that filters what users see. Instagram as well has gone algorithmic recently. Twitter still has a feed that is only partly algorithmic, and even this, users can opt out of the algorithmic feed if they want. The feed in that case remains chronological, which is as and when tweets are posted, they come into your feed. The older tweets keep going down, the newer tweets keep coming up on top. So that is another key point that we as marketers should note, that as of now, Twitter's feed is still only partly algorithmic. So with our understanding of the platform and how Twitter is different from other social networks, let's move on to understanding some key terms which we'll be using in Twitter marketing. The first is profile. One thing which you guys should note here is that unlike Facebook, where we saw in lesson 1 that you can exist as 3 entities on Facebook. You can exist as a profile, a page, and a group. If you're a user there, you'll have a profile. If you're a business, you have a page, and a group is like a community or a forum. Twitter is different here again. On Twitter, everyone has a profile. Whether you're a business or a user, you will only have a profile. There is no business page concept on Twitter yet. Next is tweet. Tweet, I'm sure you guys would have figured out by now, those of you new to Twitter as well, that a tweet is your 140 character post on Twitter. That's a tweet. Next is follow. Unlike Facebook, where you can add people as friends, on Twitter, you can only follow a profile. What happens when you follow is the same thing that happens when you add someone as a friend on Facebook. When you add someone as a friend on Facebook, their updates come into your feed. Similarly on Twitter, when you follow somebody, you will start seeing their updates in your feed. Next is @handle. @handle is your unique username on Twitter. When you sign up for Twitter, you'll be asked to give your username, and that is called your handle. It is unique to every Twitter user. Next is mention. A mention is a tweet that contains a user's @handle in it. So for example, if you are tweeting to a brand like Flipkart, then you would include @Flipkart in your tweet, and that would be a mention for Flipkart. Basically, you have mentioned the user's handle in your tweet. So the number of tweets that contain your handle are the number of mentions you have on Twitter. So if you have 10 tweets from users who have mentioned your handle in those tweets, that means you have 10 mentions. Next is hashtag. A hashtag binds together tweets around a certain topic, which helps users follow that topic or that conversation. So if you want to follow the topic social media marketing, you would want to search for hashtag social media marketing, for example, and you would find all the tweets that contain that hashtag in them. So hashtag is basically a common thread that binds tweets around a certain topic or around a certain conversation or event. Those of you who are still not very clear about what hashtags are and how they work, don't worry. You will all be live tweeting now, and after you live tweet, you will better understand the concept of a hashtag. Next is direct message or DM. This is similar to inboxing someone on Facebook. Direct messages are private, unlike tweets which are public. If you want to send someone a private message on Twitter, you will direct message them. One thing you guys should note here is that as per the default setting on Twitter, you can only DM someone who is following you. You can't just DM anyone and everyone on Twitter. For example, if you are following me but I am not following you back, you cannot DM me because I am not following you. You can only DM me once I follow you. This is the default setting on Twitter. Of course, you can change the setting to allow anyone and everyone to DM you, but that's not the default. So that's direct message. Next is like, which is the same as like on Facebook. Retweet or RT. This is the equivalent of share on Facebook. So if you want to share a tweet that someone else has tweeted with your followers, you can retweet it. Next is reply. This is the equivalent of comment on Facebook. So like, retweet, reply are similar to like, share and comment on Facebook, right? So now that we've understood the basic terminology that is used in Twitter marketing, let's go live to Twitter and let me take you through how Twitter works, particularly those of you who are new to the platform. And once we are done with that, you guys will have to tweet. So let's go to the platform. All right, you guys can now see my Twitter on your screen. This is the screen you will see when you log in to Twitter on a desktop device. On the left, you can see your name and your handle. This is the handle here that we just talked about. You can see how many people you are following and how many people are following you. Below that, you have the trends, which is something I will come to in a short while from now. Then this is your feed. This is the Twitter feed where you can see all the tweets that have come in. As you can see, most of it is chronological. You can see 22 minutes ago, 22 minutes ago, 23 minutes ago. So this feed is chronological. As and when people tweet, the tweets come into your feed. In fact, over the last few minutes since I've logged in, we now have about 32 new tweets here. This is, you can see the number going up, it's now 33. So this is how Twitter works. As and when any one out of the 930 people I am following tweet, all those tweets start coming into my feed. So this is your news feed on Twitter. Then on the top right corner, you have a tweet button. You can click on the tweet button and it will open a compose tweet box where you can see the number of characters that you have. It says 140 characters you have left to use. You can then type out your tweet. So I'm going to type out one now. I'm going to call it welcome to Twitter marketing, and I'm going to use the hashtag digital Vidyarthi, and I'm going to say tweet. You can also add images, GIFs, location and links to tweets. Only the text you add to your tweet counts to your limit. Images and links are over and above the 140 character limit. Right, so now I'm going to say tweet. It says your tweet was posted. Now, I want to see what conversation is happening around this hashtag. So I can just click on it, or I can type it here and search, either way. So I'm going to click on this hashtag now, and I'm going to see the latest tweets around this hashtag. So you can see here, my tweet, which I've just posted, is the latest tweet. And as you keep scrolling, you will find all the tweets that have happened around this hashtag. So this is a conversation happening between all the people who are tweeting with this hashtag at Digital Vidya. So what I want you guys to do now, it's activity time. I want you all to pause the video, sign into your Twitter. Those of you who don't have a Twitter account yet, please sign up right away. It takes barely 30 seconds to sign up to Twitter. So log into your Twitter and tweet using this hashtag Digital Vidyarthi, the hashtag that you see on your screen. Tweet, and once you posted your tweet, you can come back and restart the video. So go ahead guys, happy tweeting. Come back once you're done. Alright, great guys. Hope you all tweeted with that hashtag. After you guys are done, also click on the hashtag. It would have become clickable by now, like you saw me doing it a few minutes ago. Click on the hashtag or search for the hashtag on Twitter and click on the latest tab. Let me show this to you again. So search for the hashtag on Twitter and click on this latest tab here, and you should see your tweet in this feed. If you don't see it, the first thing you check is that you've got the hashtag right. If you got the hashtag right, your tweet will definitely be here. Always remember that hashtags do not have spaces. It is one word preceded by the pound symbol. So ensure that you have not included any space in the hashtag. If you have, then you'll have to tweet again with the hashtag as it is. Also, one more point is that hashtags are not case sensitive. So if you use a capital D and a capital V here, or even if you don't use it, it doesn't matter. So once you guys are done, you can come here, check for your tweet. You can also see who else has tweeted, who are some of the other people doing this course, and you can also connect to them if you want. Great. So now that we've all understood how Twitter works and we've all tweeted, understood the concept of hashtags and the basic Twitter terminology, let's move further and dive into what we are actually here for, which is the crux of this lesson: Twitter for marketing. How do you use Twitter effectively as a platform for marketing? So Twitter for marketing can be used for three key business objectives. You can use Twitter to drive brand awareness, visibility, build top of mind recall, drive engagement for your brand. You can also use it for lead generation to drive inquiries and sales. And something that is very important on Twitter, since we saw Twitter is a public platform with a lot of opinionated people being a key part of their audience, it makes it a great platform for brands to listen and monitor to what their audience is saying about them. So we'll go to each one of these three one by one. We'll see how we can use Twitter for each of these. Let's get into the first one, which is Twitter for brand awareness. How do you build your brand using Twitter as a platform? There are different ways, tactics, and strategies you can use. We'll understand each of them. The first one is contests on Twitter. Twitter contests are a great way to drive engagement with your target audience. People on Twitter, the active users, love contests. They love taking part in contests that brands organize. Contests also have a fun and interesting element to them. So let's take a look at a brand contest case study here in order to understand better how contests on Twitter work. This is a case study from Philips, which had launched its style turf contest on Twitter. So they asked Twitter users to tell them what their stubble style was, whether it was 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day, and the users had to explain which one they preferred through the tweets. They had to post their answers with the hashtag Philips, and they could win Philips styling products. Similarly, they didn't want the contest to be relevant to men alone, so they turned it around for the women, and women had to tweet saying, "I like a guy with a goatee because," and they also had to post their answers the hashtag Philips with a chance to win Philips styling products. Now this contest got a lot of traction. This of course is a big brand, and you can see the traction they've got there. A lot of tweets coming in, a lot of users taking part in the contest, and eventually as a result of this, because of the kind of response the contest got, Philips started trending at number 5 all India. At this point, for those of you who are new to Twitter, let's understand a little bit about trends, and then we'll also see what governs trends and how does a hashtag get to trend. So trends are basically the most talked about topics on Twitter in a particular geography. So you can change this geography to any particular location you want, and you can see what are the most discussed topics on Twitter there. So let's take a look at this on Twitter itself. So on Twitter here on the left bar, you see a list of what people are talking about the most at the moment. It's a combination of both hashtags as well as topics. You can click on the change button and you can change the location to any location you want. For example, if you want to change it to see what's trending in Mumbai, you can do that. You can just click Mumbai and say done. It will now change it to what's currently trending in Mumbai. The top hashtag here that says promoted is done using Twitter ads. I'll be talking about that shortly. The rest of them are trending because of a large number of people talking about this. So how do you, first of all, what is the advantage of trending is that you get a lot of brand awareness and visibility simply because almost every active Twitter user would come every day onto Twitter and see what are people talking about, what's trending, what's in the news, and you catch their attention. Your reach automatically increases exponentially. So trending does help you build that brand awareness and visibility and reach out to a lot more people on Twitter. What governs trends? How does Twitter decide which hashtags, topics, conversations to show in the top 10 list for any location? Let's take a look at the factors that govern trending. So the first factor is the volume of tweets. How many tweets do you have around that topic? How many tweets are happening around that conversation? The larger the volume, the higher the chances of trending. Next is the frequency. How frequently are people tweeting around the topic? So you have a large volume, you also have a large frequency, a large number of people tweeting every minute. So frequency is another factor that Twitter takes into account when deciding which topics and hashtags should trend. Next is the number of unique users tweeting. So the volume matters, but it also depends on whether this volume is coming from users who are unique. It is not just the same set of users tweeting again and again. And the number of Twitter influencers tweeting. Who are these Twitter influencers? Twitter influencers are users on Twitter with large following. When I say large, it varies depending on how small an influencer is to how big they are. It could be anywhere, even you could have a small influencer with 2,000 plus followers, a really large influencer with 100,000 or 150,000 plus followers. When people with such large follower counts tweet, that is also something that influences the trend. In fact, these days, if you want a trend for your brand, you will have to leverage influencers on Twitter. It is nearly impossible unless you have a real viral topic or a viral campaign to get to trend without the support of these Twitter influencers. So most brands these days, when they want to trend, they reach out to these influencers on Twitter, partner with them, ask them to join in, take part in the campaigns, take part in the contests, and help them get to trend on Twitter. And so these are key points and factors that you should keep in mind about trending. So if you want to trend, as I said, the only ways for you to do it would be either one, to have a really viral campaign that people love, people can't stop talking about, or to reach out to Twitter influencers and partner with them to get the word out about your brand and also get you to trend. One key point that you guys should note about trending here is that, as I said, trending does help you increase your reach exponentially. It does help you build brand awareness and visibility, but it does not generally have a significant business impact. So if you think that the amount of money you're investing into trying to trend will drive a large number of inquiries or sales or any other business objective, like even let's say app installs, that generally is not the case. Though of course there will be an impact, but there is no significant impact that trending tends to have on measurable business results. So that's something you should keep in mind when you decide on whether you want to run a campaign to trend on Twitter or not. If your objective is purely brand awareness and visibility, then it might make sense to go ahead and do it. But if your objective, or if you're going to judge the effectiveness of the campaign based on business results, like out of the amount of time, energy, resources you invested in getting to trend, if you're going to benchmark it or measure it with the number of sales or inquiries you've got, then that might not be the right way to measure it, because generally trending does not have a significant impact on these metrics, right? So with that thought on trending, let's move further and understand another tactic on Twitter that can be used to drive brand awareness. So far we've understood how we can use Twitter contests. We saw that case study there. Let's look at the next way you can build your brand awareness on Twitter, and this is through tweet chats. Tweet chats are basically a group of people who come together on Twitter for about an hour at regular intervals to have a conversation that revolves around a predetermined hashtag. So it is a discussion that happens on a specific topic which is defined by a hashtag. You have people coming in and they have a discussion around it. The discussion is generally driven by a brand or a thought leader who's driving this chat. So let's take a look at some examples to understand this better. It might seem not very clear at this point, but once you look at the examples, you'll have a clear idea of how this works. So let's take the first example. This is from the brand Moz. Not sure how many of you have heard of Moz, but Moz is the thought leader in the search engine optimization space, in the SEO space. If you want anything to do with SEO, Moz is the go-to blog, the go-to website for it. So they are thought leaders, and they used tweet chats as a way to drive this thought leadership to build their brand awareness and visibility. So they used to host these tweet chats around the hashtag SEO chat, where people could come and talk about various topics in the SEO space, ask them questions, they would lead the discussion and also answer any questions that you had. When you do this at regular intervals, it helps you showcase your expertise in the space, build authority and trust, and also showcase yourself as a thought leader. So tweet chats are also another way you can build brand awareness on Twitter, especially if you want to drive thought leadership in a particular domain. Let's take a look at another brand, another example that has used tweet chats to drive brand awareness and thought leadership. So this is from the brand Social Samosa. Not sure how many of you heard of it, but it is the go-to blog for social media news in India. So any updates in the social media space in India, you would want to go to Social Samosa. So over the last few years, they have also used tweet chats to help build their brand and drive thought leadership for them. So they launched this tweet chat with the hashtag Samosa chat, and they would constantly have these chats with different topics. So in this case, the topic was social selling, and they would moderate the chat. Sometimes they would have experts from different industries joining in as well, and users too. So it's a great discussion happening online and also building awareness for Social Samosa. Of course, each of these tweet chats add value to users, which again is the basic concept of social media. Add value to users on a platform. These chats are very informative, very educative for the target audience of both these brands in these two cases. And since it was adding value to them, it also helped drive engagement with the audience and end up as a great branding initiative for the brands hosting the chats. Another way to drive engagement and visibility on Twitter is to leverage trending and topical content. We saw some of these examples in lesson 1 on Facebook. Here is an example on Twitter as well on how a brand leveraged a topic that was trending to drive engagement. So this is a picture of the planet Pluto taken by one of NASA's satellites that flew past it about a year and a half ago. The satellite picture found a heart-shaped formation on Pluto's surface, and this picture of Pluto with this heart-shaped formation went viral on social media channels and platforms. And even on Twitter, you had this hashtag Pluto flyby trending. Everyone was talking about it. Now, you can see here how this brand Zomato has beautifully leveraged this trending hashtag by connecting it with its brand and tweeting about it. So you can see Zomato's tweet here. It says, "Hey NASA New Horizons, let us know if you find any restaurants during the Pluto flyby. We'll include Pluto in our expansion plans." Right? Very creative, beautiful connect drawn with the brand here. And using this trending hashtag, which people are already talking about, which a lot of people are searching for and following, helps drive additional reach for the brand tweet. So the reach that the tweet would have got otherwise would now be enhanced and increased because it is using a trending hashtag. One point to note here is, as a good practice, you do not add trending hashtags to your tweet when there is no connect. You don't just tweet about your product, pick up a trending hashtag, add it to it, and try to leverage it. That's not the right way to do it. That's not the right way to drive engagement with your audience. On Twitter, when you are creative, when you especially have a sense of humor, then it really works when you leverage trending content for your brand. This is a great example of that, of how Zomato has creatively brought in a connection between the brand that it is, a foodie brand that lists restaurants, and the Pluto flyby by a NASA satellite. And you can also see the engagement it's got, the retweets and likes. So as brands, always keep a tab on pop culture, on trending topics, and see where you can draw a brand connect and creatively leverage it to drive brand awareness. This is another interesting case study of a brand leveraging trending topics. This is a video case study, and I'm going to let you guys pause the lesson and watch this video. You can click on the video link here and watch the video. It's a 2-minute video. You can watch it and come back. Alright guys, so that's a great case study. You can see how a brand, Oreo in this case, leveraged trending topics 100 days in a row and came up with awesome content that its fans really loved, enjoyed, and shared. So this is a great way to reach out to your audience. As I said, doing it right can get you a lot of engagement and awareness for your brand. Talking about topical content, it is also important that we discuss how not to leverage topical content. One I told you is it's not a good practice to just squeeze or force the trending topic hashtag into your tweets. But when you're talking about topical content, you need to be careful on which topics you're trying to leverage. For example, look at this tweet from the brand Sears. Sears is a massive brand in the United States. This was when Hurricane Sandy had struck, and obviously it is a natural calamity at a large scale. So people are obviously talking about it on Twitter, trying to find updates about how people are doing, what is the latest news, how are the affected areas at the moment. At a time like this brand tweets saying, "Did Hurricane Sandy affect your city? Get generators, air mattresses, and more in one place." So this was, of course, still relevant to the hurricane because they were offering things that were required for people in distress: generators, air mattresses. But nevertheless, it is not really in great taste. They could have worded this differently instead of putting it across like this. But this one, the next example that you see, is topical content marketing at its worst. You can see this brand, again, Gap, a big brand, saying all impacted by Sandy stay safe, and we'll be doing lots of Gap shopping today. Very insensitive from a brand that big to post something like this at a time when people are suffering and dying. So you should keep this in mind when you are leveraging trending topics. Always be careful which topics you choose. Always stay away from topics where people are suffering. This is another example here. Another brand. This is an Indian brand. I'm not sure how many of you got this SMS after the Nepal earthquake. I did. Shortly after the Nepal earthquake, Lenskart sent out an SMS to its database saying, "Shake it off like this earthquake. Get some sunglasses at a discounted price." This was very insensitive. Nepal earthquake was trending on Twitter. Obviously, again, because people are talking about it, wanted to understand what the current status was in the affected areas. And this brand went ahead and shot out a tweet like this, trying to leverage trending topics, so to say. This got them into a lot of trouble. There was a huge uproar on social media on how a brand could be so insensitive. They made a terrible connect with a calamity that big and that serious. Eventually, the brand had to apologize to every single tweet. Even the founders had to put out an apology note on their blog. So the key takeaway from these examples I've just shown you is that when leveraging trending topics, stick to topics that are fun, topics that people are talking about, topics that you could draw a positive connect to and make people enjoy, have fun, get entertained, smile. Always stay clear of controversy. Some of you might say controversy sells, but you never know when you might end up on the wrong side of controversy and put your brand in trouble. Right? So use topical content, but use it the right way based on the right examples we saw and not on the wrong ones that we've seen. Right? So now that we've seen different ways we could leverage Twitter for brand awareness using contests, tweet chats, and leveraging trending topics and topical content. Let's now move into the next topic for Twitter marketing, which is how to use it for lead generation. Twitter can be used for lead generation in two ways. One is by listening for conversations that your target audience would have on Twitter and joining in those conversations in the most meaningful way possible. The second is using advertising on Twitter. We'll talk about advertising in a short while from now. For now, let's look at how we can use listening for conversations on Twitter effectively to help us drive leads. We'll look at one example first. So you can see here, this is a tweet from this person named Anish Unikrishnan. He had ordered for t-shirts online from this brand called Threadless, and he didn't get his t-shirts delivered. He was pretty upset and he took to Twitter. He tweeted saying, "We can call India a superpower only when I can order threadless tees online and be sure they will be delivered." Now there was this brand called Sheepstop which sells organic t-shirts online, and they were listening in on conversations that people were having on Twitter around tees online, t-shirts online, threadless tees online. When this person tweeted, they immediately replied to him saying, "Why don't you give us a shot? We have organic cotton tees with crowdsourced designs and we deliver too." And this guy replied saying, "Will do." Now, he might not have gone and bought a t-shirt immediately, but the next time he wants to buy a t-shirt online, this brand would definitely be one of the brands that would be top of his mind, and he would definitely at least check them out, and if their stuff is good, he might even end up buying. So the point here is, as brands, it is good to listen in on conversations that your target audience would probably be having on Twitter. So you search for keywords that are relevant to your industry, listen to what's happening, and wherever you can contribute meaningfully, you contribute. This helps you reach out to people and get your brand in front of the most relevant audience. And so how do you do this? How do you listen in on specific conversations that are happening on Twitter? Is by using something called Twitter Advanced Search. So let's look at how do we use Twitter Advanced Search. So let me go to Twitter and show you how you can use Twitter Advanced Search effectively to listen in and monitor specific conversations on Twitter. So on Twitter, you have this search bar, and let's search now for, let's say, hashtag social media marketing. And once you run that search, you can click on more options here. Any search on Twitter, you can click on more options, and at the bottom you have this advanced search option. Once you click on this, you will come to the advanced search page on Twitter. Those of you use it frequently, you can just bookmark this URL, twitter.com/search-advanced. That's what I do. I keep it bookmarked because I tend to come here quite often. So once you come here, you have multiple options to help you search for specific conversations on Twitter. Let me first take you through the various options you have. So you can search for tweets containing all of certain words, tweets containing an exact phrase, tweets containing any of a bunch of words that you want to search for, tweets that do not have certain words, tweets containing specific hashtags, tweets written in a particular language. So you can choose tweets in any language here. You can choose tweets in, let's say, Hindi, tweets in Japanese, Kannada, Korean, lots of options here if you want to search for tweets in a specific language. Then you can search for tweets from certain accounts to certain accounts, mentioning certain accounts. You also have the location option. You can add a location and search for tweets only around that location. Then you can search for tweets within a specific date range. So if you want only the most recent tweets, you don't want tweets that are 3 years old, you want tweets only in the last, let's say, 1 month, 3 months, 1 week, you can give your date range here and it will pull up tweets only from within that date range, right? So let's see how we can use this practically. What are the different ways in which we can use advanced search? So the first thing is the location option, which is very, very powerful, especially when you have an audience limited to a certain geography. You can add a location and only look for tweets within that area. So that way you filtered out tweets that might be coming in from the rest of the world around that topic. So you can click on add location and you can select whichever location you want. So you can say search for a neighborhood, search for your city and choose it. So for now you can search for tweets around Mumbai. So for example, if I want to look for anyone who is talking about, let's say, social media marketing, so I can see, and when I say search, I can see tweets around social media marketing that are coming from Mumbai alone, right? This is within 15 miles of Mumbai. Who are the people tweeting with or around the topic social media marketing? You can click on latest and see all the tweets. So this is how you use advanced search to look for only relevant tweets on Twitter around the location where your target audience currently is. So let's go back to the advanced search page and let's look at other ways we can use it. The other way you can use it is to also monitor mentions of your brand, not mentions of your handle, but anyone who's mentioned your brand anywhere on Twitter. So for example, if you want to search for mentions of Digital Vidya, you can do that. Just add Digital Vidya here as an exact phrase because you don't want tweets containing only Vidya or only digital to show up. I want tweets containing this exact phrase to show up. So I can click that and I can either be location specific or I can turn off location and then say search. So this will now give me all tweets around or mentioning Digital Vidya in it. Apart from monitoring brand mentions and making your tweets location specific, you can use combinations of the options that you have here to narrow down the kind of conversations you want to listen on. For example, let's say that you are a company that is selling CRM software, customer relationship management software, and you want to listen in for conversations where anyone is asking or looking for a CRM software on Twitter. So what would you do? You would choose CRM here. You would say your tweet must contain CRM and also contain phrases that people would add to their tweets, especially when they are looking for information on which CRM to buy. So this could be a whole bunch of them. If you think, you would probably come up with stuff like, people would say, please advise which CRM could I use, or please recommend a CRM that I could use, or they would say, okay, they would ask for reviews of a specific CRM. So you would combine CRM and run searches with a combination of different phrases. For example, I'm going to run a search with please recommend. So CRM and the tweet should also have the phrase please recommend, and I'm going to say search. So you can look for which tweets are relevant here. For example, someone has said, can someone please recommend a solid affordable CRM solution and one that can easily scale? So as a CRM brand, if you were a brand that is offering CRM softwares, you would reply to this tweet and join the conversation. You might want to say, hey, we've got a CRM that is really good and you might want to try us out. We have a trial that you can use. We'd be happy to offer you a trial. So you could join the conversation, add value to the user here. Similarly, you can find lots of options, lots of tweets that are happening. You have something that says, can you please recommend a CRM tool that has beautiful, do you use a CRM tool that you don't hate? Please recommend one to me, right? So this is how you match different phrases that your people would use in their tweets and monitor exactly the kind of tweets you want to. You could also combine, let's say, CRM with please advise, or CRM with just advise, or CRM with reviews or review, to keep track of all the potential conversations that people would have around your product, your service, anything relevant to your brand and your audience, right? And then when you find something relevant, you take part and join the conversation. Twitter is all about conversation, and the more conversation you drive, the more engagement you get in the long term. Also helps build visibility for you as a brand. So now that you understood how do we use advanced search to monitor specific conversations on Twitter, let's look at another case study of a brand that has generated a lead through the right listening on Twitter. So this was a user who tweeted with the hashtag social media saying, which digital marketing course should I enroll for? Digital Vidya or Upgrade or Simply Learn or Manipal University? It's Gigi confusing, right? So this is a user on Twitter asking for an opinion from people on Twitter on which digital marketing course he should enroll for. He's not sure, and he's got 4 options. He's confused on which one to pick. So this is a term that is relevant to Digital Vidya as a brand. Of course, Digital Vidya is also, the brand is also mentioned here. So as a brand, you should be monitoring both your brand mentions as well as relevant terms like digital marketing course. So let's take a look at what happened after this tweet. So Digital Vidya replies to this person, apart from the other replies that he got, saying, thanks for considering Digital Vidya. Have you attended our orientation led by our CEO? Details here. So this person, there were other replies as well that are not in this screenshot. This person, Rishi, he replies to someone else who suggested something else he could choose, saying, I've gone ahead with Digital Vidya because they are digital enough to send me a reply on my tweet. Thanks for the tip. Next course. Right? He also went ahead to tweet saying, and Digital Vidya replies to my tweet, my interpretation, they practice what they preach. Gone ahead with them. So this is another interesting example of how listening to users and driving conversation with them on Twitter helps generate leads for a business and a brand. Right? So it's activity time again. What I want you guys to do is pick up your notebook and pen and make a list of all the topics and phrases that your audience would be looking for or talking about on Twitter, which you will then need to listen on or monitor. So pick up your notebook and start writing down. Think of everything that you would want to monitor, all the topics, all the possible phrases, all the combinations of phrases, any conversation that you would want to monitor on Twitter. So put that down in your notebook. Please pause the video now. Put this down. It's going to be useful for you, useful for your business, and also for your effective use of Twitter as a marketing platform. So pause the video right away and make this list and then come back and play it again. At this point, some of you might have a question, and that would be, we have so many conversations to monitor. How do we monitor these on a daily basis? Now, we all have a lot of things to do. It's unlikely that we can go and run Twitter advanced searches for all these different combinations of queries that we have to monitor all the conversations we want to listen in on. So how do we do it? How do we do it in a more organized, efficient manner? There are 2 ways to do this. One is using this tool that I'm just going to show you called Warble Alerts. The other is by using a tool called Hootsuite, which we'll cover in the next lesson, where you can set up all the conversations that you want to listen on and monitor them on a daily basis. So let's look at this tool first. This tool helps you create email alerts for Twitter conversations that you want to monitor. So if you want to monitor a specific conversation, you can enter that into this tool, and this tool will then send you an email whenever any activity happens. If there is activity happening every day, then it will send you a daily digest email once a day with all the activity that is happening around that particular topic. So let's go to the tool and see how this tool works. So you can go to warble.co and sign up for the tool with your Twitter account. Once you do that, you will come to a screen like this where you can click on new alert and you can enter the topic or the phrase that you want to monitor conversations for. Enter the email you want to deliver it to and then say setup. The moment you say setup, then it will set up the alerts for you and send you an email whenever any activity happens around this particular topic. So you will get emails like this for every alert that you set up. Whenever you get an alert, you can click on it and you can check if there's anything relevant, anything that you would want to respond to or join the conversation for. You can then engage from here. You can retweet, you can reply right from here itself. Right? Once you click on retweet or reply, it will take you to the app and you can engage with it. Right? So this tool helps you monitor specific conversations on Twitter and get email alerts whenever any activity happens around those conversations. It's a very useful tool to use. It's also free. So you guys can set this up now. Those of you who want to do it right away, pause the video, go to warble.co, sign up with Twitter, and you already made a list of topics and phrases that your audience would be looking for. So go to warble.co, sign up for the tool, and enter the alerts that you want to monitor there. So you guys can pause the video, complete this task, and then come back and restart it again. Alright guys, hope you've set up Warble to monitor relevant conversations on Twitter. Let's move next to Twitter ads. How do we use ads on Twitter effectively to drive our various objectives that we will have for Twitter marketing? To start with, let's look at the ad types that we have on Twitter. So on Twitter, we've got a promoted trend, which is what we just saw as well when you're looking at trends a little while ago. Next, you have a promoted account, which is running ads to get more followers for your Twitter account. Next is a promoted tweet, which is a tweet that you see in your feed, but it has this promoted tag on it to show that it's actually an ad. So let's take a look at these on the live Twitter feed. Let's look at some examples of these live on Twitter right now. So on Twitter here, you can see the same promoted trend that we saw earlier. This promoted trend cannot be done through the self-serve ad tool that I'm going to show you. If you want to run a promoted trend, you will have to do it by reaching out to a Twitter marketing partner in your country. So you'd Google for, let's say if it's India, you'd Google for Twitter marketing partners in India, or reach out to Twitter directly and tell them that you want to do a promoted trend. They will then assist you on how you can get this done. Promoted accounts normally show over here on the top right corner. There is no promoted account showing right now, but that's where they normally show. And then you have promoted tweet, which is what you see here. It says promoted, and this tweet is actually an ad which is showing up in my Twitter feed. So this is an example of a promoted tweet. Right, now that we've seen the different ad types on Twitter, let's go to the Twitter ad tool. So you type out ads.twitter.com. That's how you access your Twitter ads. For those of you who are new to Twitter, you might not have access to ads. Those of you who've just signed up, brand new accounts, you might not see this ad access. Those of you who have used Twitter ads for some time, you will find it in your drop down here. It will say Twitter ads, but most of you who never accessed Twitter ads might not find it here. In which case, just type ads.twitter.com and hit enter. It will take you to the Twitter ads dashboard. Now, Twitter ads, in fact, all social advertising is very similar to Facebook ads. Since you guys have spent a lot of time, a whole lesson, live session and task on Facebook ads, understanding Twitter ads would be very simple, simply because all the other social advertising platforms have followed Facebook's footsteps, and most of the structure, the way the campaign is set up is the same. There are few differences that I will focus on. The rest of the flow and the structure is same. Even here, just like Facebook, you have, like you see, campaigns, ad groups and ads, the same campaign structure. Just like Facebook, if you guys remember the 3 steps to creating a Facebook ad campaign. At the campaign level, you choose your objective. At the ad set level, you choose your targeting, placement, bidding, budget and schedule. And at the ad level, you choose your ad type, copy and creative. Same thing on Twitter. So when you want to create a new campaign, you click on create campaign. Here you will choose your objective at the campaign level. Again, very similar to Facebook. You can promote your tweets to drive engagement. You can get video views, website clicks or conversions, app installs and engagements. You want followers. Leads on Twitter are just like the lead ads on Facebook, where a form opens on Twitter and the leads are collected on Twitter itself without directing the user to an external website. Right, so let's take one of these objectives and let's go to the next step. So I'm going to take tweet engagements, click on that. This takes me to the next step. You will then name your campaign. I'm just going to call it a test campaign for now. You can then choose your start and end dates. So if you want to start on a specific date and end, let's say 1 week, you can do that. And then you will go to the next step, which is again just like Facebook, choosing your target audience. Again, like Facebook, on the right you can see the potential audience size. As you keep narrowing down your audience, this number will keep changing. So I'm going to start with selecting location. Just like Facebook, you can target by location. So let's say I can enter a location I want. Let's say if I want to target Mumbai, I can say Mumbai. And then I can target, again very similar to Facebook. You have gender targeting, languages, device targeting. Twitter's targeting options are not as comprehensive as Facebook. Facebook is far ahead. Facebook has a lot more data and a much more massive user base than Twitter. So Facebook has a lot more targeting options that you will not find here in Twitter. Twitter is not as comprehensive, but Twitter has some options that are different from Facebook. Let me tell you what those are. The first one is keyword targeting. On Twitter, you can target your audience based on keywords or phrases that they use in their tweets, right? So this is not something you can do on Facebook. This is something you can only do on Twitter, because tweets are public, and since they are public, Twitter can use that data to help advertisers reach the right people. On Facebook, whatever people share is generally shared with friends, generally private, and hence that information is not used directly as keyword targeting. Of course, it might be used to understand your interests on Facebook, but not for targeting specifically based on the words you use when you type in something on Facebook. So you can type any keyword you want based on what you want to target your audience for. So let's say, for example, if you want to type in someone who's tweeting about biking or travel, so you can just enter travel and you can see the number here, 66,000 to 99,000 people in Mumbai tweeting with travel recently. So you can also expand your reach by adding relevant recommended keywords based on what you enter. Twitter, again, just like Facebook, recommends similar keywords that you can add that people might be using. For example, similar hashtags like travel tape, hashtag travel, maybe world travel, right? Traveling, travelers, traveling spelled differently, different options that Facebook gives you, hashtag travelers. So you can add everything that's relevant, choose whatever is relevant, and add those keywords. So you can see here, this number has now gone up to 98,000 to 146,000 users in Mumbai who are tweeting with these keywords of late. So that's keyword targeting, which is again, as I said, something that you don't have, something that you don't have on Facebook. So I'm going to move on to the next option, and that is the ability to target followers of specific accounts, right? So just like I told you in the Facebook ad lesson, that on Facebook you can target competitors only who are big. You can't target fans of smaller competitors. On Twitter, you can target the followers of any Twitter account irrespective of how small they are. So for example, if you want to target the followers of Flipkart, you can just type in Flipkart here. You can use smaller brands as well. Any small competitor that you have, provided they have a Twitter account, you can enter them here and you can target their followers. And I've just taken Flipkart as an example. It's a big brand, but smaller brands too, anyone with a Twitter account, you can target their followers. Similarly, you have interest targeting, again very similar to Facebook, only thing not as comprehensive. Facebook's interest targeting is very, very comprehensive. We've seen how you will find almost any and every interest on Facebook. Twitter is comparatively limited, but nevertheless, there are options here that you have. Next is tailored audiences. This is the equivalent of custom audiences on Facebook. By now, you'll all be very aware of what custom audiences are and how they are used. Custom audiences on Twitter are called tailored audiences, and you can use these just like you use Facebook custom audiences to upload databases and create an audience. You can use it to retarget visitors of your website, right? So this is just the same as custom audiences on Facebook. Next, you've got TV targeting, which is not available in India at the moment, but is available in certain other countries. Similarly, you have behaviors, which again is not available in India, available only in select countries. Then, just like Facebook, you would choose where you want to place your ads. Do you want to place them on users' timelines, which is what we just saw, where we saw the promoted tweet in my feed, or you can also place it in profile pages when somebody is viewing another Twitter account or profile. You can place it there, or even in tweet detail pages when somebody has expanded a tweet or clicked on a tweet to expand it, you can show your ads there as well. Right, so those are the two placements that Twitter ads allow you. Once you have set your audience and your placements, then you go to the next step, where again, just like Facebook, you will set your budget, both a daily budget as well as a lifetime budget. After you do that, then the last stage of ad creation, you will choose your creative and your copy. You will create your tweet that you want to promote, and then once you're done, you will launch your campaign, right? So as I said, once you understood Facebook ads in detail, all the other social advertising platforms are pretty much a breeze because they follow pretty much the same structure and flow. The only key differences are what you need to pay attention to, and that's what I've highlighted while taking you through Twitter ads. The rest of the flow remains the same, right? So this is how you create a Twitter ad campaign based on your objective on Twitter. So you can use Twitter ads to run campaigns for either brand awareness or lead generation, depending on what the objective for your business is. Great, so now that we've gone through a live demo of how do you create a campaign using Twitter ads and what are the various ad targeting options you have available. Let's move on to the next topic, which is Twitter lists. So what are Twitter lists? Lists are an organization of users into a group on Twitter. So to make that simple, it is basically a collection of Twitter accounts or users that you organized in order to see tweets from all of them in one place. When you view a list, you will see tweets from all the users in that list. So let's take an example. We've seen that Twitter can get very noisy. There are lots of tweets, lots of conversation that is happening constantly on Twitter. And let's assume that you are following 500 people on Twitter, and each one of them tweets on an average, let's say 3 to 4 times a day, which means with just 500 people you are following, you could get up to, let's say, 1500 to 2000 tweets in your feed on a daily basis. Now, in a feed that is so crowded, you could miss out on important updates that you don't want to miss out on. For example, let's say you've got 10 very good friends who you are following on Twitter, and you don't want to miss their tweets. Whenever they tweet, you want to see what they are saying or what they are tweeting about. In this case, you would make use of lists. You would add those 10 friends of yours to a list, and you would view that list to see tweets only from those 10 friends in one place, right? So lists help you cut through that noise on Twitter. It helps you follow tweets from a relevant group of accounts or users that you want to see tweets from. There are multiple use cases for lists when it comes to Twitter marketing, and we'll go into the different ways you can use them shortly. And you could even use them, for example, to follow influencers in your industry to stay up to date with what they are tweeting about. You can follow and listen to tweets from all those influencers in one place by creating a list for them. So let's go to Twitter and first see how do we create a list. So let's say we want to create a list of influencers in the social media marketing space whom we can follow and stay up to date with what's happening in the space, the latest news, the latest insights. So I'm going to click on the search here, and I'm going to search for social media marketing. I'm going to click on accounts, and I'm going to look out for some of the top accounts here, which are some of the best social media marketing blogs. So you can look here, you have Social Media Examiner. It's a very popular blog in the social media marketing space. It's also a Twitter verified account. So if I want to add this account to a list, so I'm going to click on this gear icon here, and I'm going to say add or remove from lists. I will then say create a list. I will name the list social media marketing influencers. The description is optional. If you want to give a description, you can do that. Otherwise, you can just leave it blank. Then you have two important options here which you guys should know. You can choose to keep the list public, or you can choose to keep it private. A public list means anyone can follow your list. Also, all the users whom you are adding to this list will get a notification saying that you added them to the list named SMM influencers. In cases where you would not want this to happen, let's say for example, you are creating a list of all your competitors. You want to see all your competitors' tweets and Twitter activity in one place. In this case, you would not want them to know that you added them to a list and you are keeping track of their activity. In such a case, you will make the list private. So in this case, they will not get a notification, and the list will also be not visible to anyone else but you. Right, so for now I'm going to create a public list and I'm going to say save. So now I've added this user to this SMM influencers list. Next, let's say I want to add Mashable as well. I will click here. I will say add or remove from lists. I will choose SMM influencers. Similarly, next, let's say I want to add social media today. I will say add or remove from lists. Add them as well. Right, Mashable social media. Same process. Done. So I've added 4 users to the list right now. Let's add another one. Let's add this one as well. So now we've added 5 accounts to this list called social media marketing influencers. Now let's say I want to view tweets from these 5 accounts in one place. So I will go to my Twitter lists. There are 2 ways you can go there. One is by clicking here and clicking on lists. Some of you might not see it here. Those of you who don't see it here, I'll show you another place to find it. You'll find it on your profile. Once you create a list, you will find lists here. You can click on that. You will see the latest list that you've created, which is here SMM influencers. You can see it has 5 members. I'm going to click on this list, and here you will now see tweets from these 5 members alone. So you cut through the clutter, the noise on Twitter. You now have a feed with tweets only from these 5 users. As you scroll the feed, you will find only the most relevant social media marketing content in this case. So this is how you filter your feed on Twitter to listen in to specific Twitter users and accounts in one place. In this case, we just created a list for listening to all social media marketing influencers to stay up to date with what's happening in the industry. So one way to create a list is what we just saw. You can create a list manually, search for specific accounts and add them to a list. You can also add them from their profile page. So let's go to this page. You can click on this gear icon and the same process. So you can go to a user's profile and you can add them from their profile as well by clicking on the same icon and saying add or remove from lists. So that is one way you can create a Twitter list, is by shortlisting accounts and manually adding them to a list. The other way you can follow a list is by subscribing to an existing list. Let me show you an example. How do you do this? Let's say that again you want to follow experts and thought leaders in the social media marketing space to stay updated with what's happening in the space. Now in this case, what you could do is find one influencer in the space. Let's say you are aware of one person who is a thought leader in the space. Let's take this person. His name is Jeff Bullas. He is, as you can see, a Forbes top 10 social media marketing influencer. He's got about nearly 500,000 followers on Twitter. You can see that he has 5 lists. Let's click on it. And here you can see that he has 2 lists, one called Social Media Thinkers and one called Top Social Media Experts. Now if somebody who is a thought leader in the space himself has created a list called Top Social Media Thinkers or is subscribed to a list of social media experts, you can safely assume that these guys are thought leaders in the space because he is a thought leader himself, and if he's made a list of other social media thinkers and experts, they are definitely people you'd want to follow, people you'd consider thought leaders. So let's click on one of these lists. Let's click on this one, Top Social Media Experts. So here you can see there are 27 members in this list, and you will find different tweets which are relevant to people in the social media marketing space. So if you want to subscribe to this list, you don't want to create your own, you can just use this ready-made list and subscribe to it. Over here you will have a subscribe button. I have already subscribed to it. Otherwise you will see a subscribe button like this, and when you click, you can subscribe to this list. So next time you can go to your own list, you will find this list there, and you can follow it and stay up to date with tweets from those users in the list, right? Apart from this, you can also create lists automatically using a tool called IFTTT, right? Don't worry about that. I will be covering this in the next lesson when I talk about social media marketing tools. I will also show you there how you can automatically create a list of relevant people on Twitter. For now, you should know that there are 3 ways you can access lists. One is you create it manually by finding relevant people, adding them to a list. Second is you can subscribe to an existing list. And third is you can automatically create a list, which I will show you in the next lesson when we discuss the tool I was talking about. So what are the different ways you can practically use Twitter lists for marketing? The first one is what I had mentioned a little while back, is if you want to monitor your competitors and their Twitter activity in one place, you can create a list for them. But please ensure in this case that you use a private list. Avoid making the list public in this case, because then your competitors will get a notification that you have added them to a list. Next, you can use Twitter lists to follow influencers and thought leaders in your industry in one place, just like how we saw. Now we created a list for social media marketing influencers. You can do that for your industry and stay up to date with what's happening, get the latest insights in the space from them. Next, you can make a list of people who tweet with specific hashtags in your industry. Anyone who's using industry specific hashtags is relevant to you. So you could create a list of all these users who are tweeting with industry specific hashtags. This also can be done automatically. When I talk about the tool in the next lesson, I will show you how you can automatically build a list of all people who are tweeting with a specific hashtag. And then you can also use them for shortlisting potential business partners you want to connect with. So let's say you're shortlisting people you want to connect to on Twitter and you want to follow their tweets and make a list of all these accounts in one place. You can use Twitter lists for this. Again, in this case, please ensure you use private lists. In all cases where you don't want accounts or people to know that you added them to a list, always choose private. So these are some use cases when it comes to Twitter lists for marketing. Right? To summarize, Twitter lists help you cut through the clutter on Twitter and follow tweets from a group or set of accounts in one single place. And these are different examples or different ways you can use them for your marketing. Different use cases for Twitter lists. So it's activity time again for all of you. Time to pull out that notebook and pen that I hope so far you've been also taking notes on and putting down your questions on. So I want all of you now to add 5 of your competitors to a list on Twitter. We just saw how to create a list. So all of you, I'm sure you know your competitors. Put down 5 of them who are there on Twitter, of course. 5 competitors who are active on Twitter, who have a Twitter account. So go to each of their profiles, click on the gear icon that I showed you, add them to a list. But a reminder again, ensure that the list you create is private. Right? So all of you pause the video now, go to Twitter, add 5 of your competitors to a list and then come back. Alright. Great guys. Hope all of you have completed this activity and added 5 of your competitors to a Twitter list. So let's move further. Let's go to the next topic, which is Twitter analytics. What data, what analytics does Twitter give you in order to analyze how your marketing on Twitter is performing? In the first lesson, we saw Facebook Insights. We saw all the kind of data that Facebook gives us to analyze our Facebook marketing efforts and understand how we are doing on Facebook. Similarly, Twitter gives you data as well, insights into your Twitter marketing. Not as comprehensive as Facebook, but definitely numbers that you can use to judge your Twitter marketing effort. So let's go live to analytics on Twitter and see what metrics does Twitter allow us to measure. So if you want to analyze analytics on Twitter, you can click on this image of yourself in the top right corner and you can click on analytics. Those of you who are new to Twitter might not find this here, in which case you can just type out analytics.twitter.com and that will take you to Twitter analytics. So this is Twitter analytics. As we discussed a little while back, on Twitter there is no business page concept. Everyone, whether you're a user or a business, you will have a profile. So the analytics that you see here for my profile are the same as what you will see for your business's Twitter account. There is no difference there. All the numbers that you see here, all the metrics that you see here, you will also see there. Right, so let's see what does Twitter give us. So you have a 28-day summary with a change over the previous 28 days. You have a quick summary of your tweets. How many tweets did you do and how did you perform as compared to the last 28 days. The impressions your tweets got versus the last 28 days. The profile visits that your Twitter account got. The mentions, we've already defined mentions. Profile visits is how many people came and visited your Twitter profile. Mentions is the number of tweets that contained your username in them. Number of times people mentioned your username or handle in their tweets. And then you have followers with the change as compared to the last 28-day period. So this is a summary. Then you have a month-wise summary as well. You have it for October. You can see September. So you have a summary of what was the top tweet in that month, which got, so this tweet, it tells you this was your best tweet in September 2016. It got 4,500 impressions. So you know which content of yours is performing the best. Then you have top mention. So this is a mention because it mentions my username in the tweet. So top mention in terms of the number of engagements. So you can see it's got 2 replies, 1 retweet, 4 likes, and the rest are clicks. That's why it is a total of 21 engagements, which is the top mention. Then it says top follower. This person followed me. He has 223,000 followers. So who was your top follower? Top media tweet. The difference between tweet and media tweet is that this tweet contains some media, an image or a video. So this is the top media tweet with over 1,000 impressions. So it gives you also a summary for the month. How many tweets, how many impressions, how many profile visits, how many mentions, and how many new followers. So it's a quick snapshot. We've all discussed what are the 2 main reasons we need this data. The main thing is to analyze our performance and see what results are we getting from the efforts that we are putting into Twitter marketing based on our objectives. Are we achieving those objectives? If the objective is brand awareness, are we reaching enough people? Are we getting enough impressions for our tweets? Are we getting more mentions? Are we able to drive conversation? The more the mentions you have, it means the more people are talking to you, the more people are having conversations with you. So mentions is a great metric to check how much engagement you are driving on Twitter. So apart from analyzing the effectiveness of your Twitter marketing, the other thing you will also need analytics for is to make reports. All of us who are not let's say proprietors or entrepreneurs who don't have to report to people. We have to make reports either to a senior person in the management or to our clients to tell them how Twitter marketing did in that period. So if you have to make a report for September, these numbers would help you make that report. So apart from this data that you get here, you can also click on view all tweet activity, and this will give you your tweet activity in detail. So you can also change your date range if you want to see for a specific month, for let's say the last 6 months, you can add that. Or if you just want, let's say for September, you can click on September and it will tell you on a daily basis how many impressions you were getting. You can also export this data by clicking on export. You can export this data into Excel. Those of you who prefer exporting to Excel, you can do that. It will then pop up a window where you can save the exported data. Then as you scroll down, on the right, you have an overview of your key metrics. What was your engagement rate? How many people engaged with your tweets as a percentage of all those who saw the tweets? Then how many people clicked on links you shared? How many people retweeted your tweets? How many people liked your tweets? How many people replied to your tweets? Right? So it's a quick summary, quite visual as well. You could also take screenshots and use them in your reports that you are making. So all this data, when you look at this, let's say your objective was to drive at least or get at least 25 replies in the month of September. If you got only 15, you probably need to do better, right? Similarly, if you wanted to get at least 100 link clicks and you got only 46, you know that you probably need to make your content more engaging so more people click on it, or you need to probably rethink your Twitter strategy to get more engagement and more clicks on your tweets. On the left here, you have a list of all your tweets with the impressions, engagements and engagement rate for each. This is again very similar to the post section of Facebook Insights, where you have all the posts on Facebook, and we saw how we can click on every post and analyze the best ones on why they worked and the ones that didn't work, why they didn't work. Similarly here, you can see your top tweets. You can analyze what was the common factor to all these tweets that made them get the kind of engagement or impressions they got, what worked for these tweets, and the tweets that didn't work, what didn't work. So you analyze your successful tweets and see how you can replicate that success. You analyze tweets that are not performing so well and see how you can stop doing them. So just like Facebook, this is how you'll analyze tweets that are performing well here. Another thing that you guys need to know at this point is what governs how many impressions a tweet will get, what governs the reach of a tweet. There are multiple factors. So the first key factor is the number of followers an account has. An account with a larger number of followers has a larger potential reach. So if you have an account or a brand A that has 5,000 followers and a brand B that has 1,000 followers, all other factors remaining the same, assuming that the followers are all high quality and all other factors concerning the tweet remaining the same, brand A, which has more followers, would have a larger potential reach for the tweet. I said potential reach because having 5,000 followers does not mean that all those 5,000 followers will see your tweet. This is because of multiple reasons. It could be that when the tweet was posted, a good bunch of those followers had not logged into their Twitter feed, and by the time they logged in, let's say a few hours later, the tweet had got buried under another 1,000 tweets that had come in after that. So one factor that governs the reach of a tweet is the number of followers the account has. Next is the number of retweets on that tweet. A retweet is like a share on Facebook. So if more people are sharing the tweet, it has a triple effect. It's going to be seen by a lot more people. It's going to be reaching a lot more people. It's going to be reaching the followers of everyone who has retweeted that tweet. So number of retweets is an important factor in how many people the tweet reached. Of course, retweets are a factor of great content. If your content is great, people will share it, people will retweet it, automatically you will get more reach. That's a fundamental of social media marketing itself. Have awesome content, everything else will follow. If you included interesting, attractive images that catch attention, then again the chances of your engagement on that tweet is higher. Chances of people retweeting it are higher, and in the process your tweets reach will also be higher. Next is very important, using relevant hashtags. When you use hashtags that people are searching for, hashtags that people are following, automatically your tweet will start reaching them. Even if they are not following you, but following that particular hashtag or topic, then they will still see your tweets. So your tweets get to reach a lot more people who are not even just following you. Next is timing of the tweet. This is again quite important because as we saw, Twitter's feed is only partly algorithmic, and since there is so much noise on Twitter and so much content that is being posted, when you post a tweet at a certain time of the day, you will only reach a certain proportion of your followers. You will not reach all of them because they might not have logged in at that point. So finding the best time to tweet, the time when most of your Twitter followers are active, helps you get additional reach as well. How do we do this? We'll come back to this in a short while from now. Coming back to the analytics dashboard, you can take a look at the tweets that have performed really well, analyze what caused them to perform well. Was it the hashtags that you'd used? Was it the content that was really good, which probably got it engagement, or retweets which drove additional impressions and reach? So analyzing these tweets will let you know what's working for you. Should you be using specific hashtags more regularly, more often, to get more reach and impressions? All this data will help you figure that out. Apart from this, Twitter also gives you a basic insight into who your followers on Twitter are. So you can click on View Followers Dashboard, and here Twitter will give you an overview of who these people who have followed you are. In this case, you can see my 1500 odd followers. Most of them are from the tech and entrepreneurship and marketing startup space. So it gives you an idea of, okay, who is your audience, right? Similarly, it tells you the gender percentage, male, female. This is relevant only to the US. If you have any followers from the United States, it will tell you their household income categories. This is not available for followers from India. Their careers, right? It gives you this data. You can see their demographics. What are their age groups broadly? Which countries are they from? What languages do they speak? You can also see their interests, which we just saw, the TV genres, and their mobile carriers, which operator they are using and which devices they are using. So this is a brief overview to understand your Twitter audience or the followers on Twitter better, and you could probably gain some insight into who these people are and also use that data in, let's say, your targeting, or use it in other relevant places as part of your marketing efforts. Right, so we've seen all the data that Twitter Analytics gives you. It's not as comprehensive as Facebook, as I said, but nevertheless gives you enough metrics to know if your Twitter marketing efforts are going in the right direction and if you are achieving the objectives that you set out to achieve. Next, let us look at tools that can make our Twitter marketing more effective, get us better results from the effort we are putting into Twitter marketing. The first tool that we're going to look at is called Tweeted. This tool lets you know what is the best time to tweet. So we saw a little while back that one of the factors that governs the reach of your tweets is the time you tweet at. So how do you know what is the best time to tweet? Twitter Analytics does not give you this, unlike Facebook Insights, where Facebook tells you what time of the day your fans are online the most. We just saw Twitter Analytics does not give you this data. So the only way you can get this data is by using external tools. One of these tools which you can use is called Tweeted. So let's take a look at this tool live. How does it work? Let's go to the live tool now. So you can go to tweeted.com and click on sign up with Twitter. Ensure you are logged into your Twitter account. So when you do this, it will ask you to authorize Tweeted to use your Twitter data. And then once you log in, you can click on My Analysis here. When you click on My Analysis, it will give you the analysis for your account. It will tell you when you should tweet for most exposure. So on weekends, this is your time. Sundays, Mondays, and weekdays. Similarly, it will also tell you what time of the day most of your followers are online. So again, you have weekends, Sundays, Mondays, weekdays, and all of them put together you can see here for analysis and a comparison between each of these. So if you want to tweet on weekdays, you know that this is when your followers are online the most, and this is the period when you get most exposure. So now you know what are the best times you can pick to tweet, and then as we always say, you will test different timings. You know it's 9 to 12 here, so you might want to test different timings in this particular range and see which gets you the best reach and engagement on Twitter. Right, so that's Tweeted. It's a tool that you use to find out what is the best time to tweet. Let's go to the next tool, which is called Hashtagify. This tool helps you find out which hashtags to use. Right, another factor that we saw, which plays an important role in the reach of your tweets, is the hashtag you use. So how do you know which hashtags you should use? Which hashtags will get you the most reach? Right, this is something that is important because using hashtags that are very crowded, so to say, where you have a lot of tweets coming in on a particular hashtag, then your tweet would get lost in the crowd. Using a hashtag that is very thin, not very popular, in which case you will not be reaching enough people because there are not enough people who are following that hashtag. So using hashtags which are very popular, your tweet gets lost in the crowd of tweets. Using hashtags that are not very popular, your tweet does not get enough exposure. So you need to pick hashtags based on their popularity, something that is just popular enough to help you get in front of your target audience. So this tool, you can enter your hashtag, it will find you similar hashtags, it will tell you what is their popularity score, and based on this data, you can choose which hashtags you want to use in your tweets. So let's go to this tool as well live and let's take a look at how this works. So you can go to hashtagify.me and you can search for your hashtag. So in this case, let me search for social media marketing. You can do a search for any hashtag that you want that is relevant to your industry, and then you can say search. So now it will show you which hashtags are most correlated with the hashtag you searched for, which hashtags are most used along with this hashtag. So you have SMM, It also gives you the popularity score of the hashtag. You have Facebook, social media, you have Twitter, digital marketing, content marketing, SEO. These are hashtags that are most commonly used with social media marketing. So based on this data, you can choose which hashtags you want to use in your tweets in order to get the best reach for your tweets. The next tool we're going to cover is called Crowdfire. It's a tool that can help you grow your Twitter following. Before we go into this tool, let's summarize different ways to build a following on Twitter. We've already talked about all this in today's lesson. Let's put it together here. I'm sure a lot of you will have this question. How do I build a following on Twitter? I'm just starting out, just set up my company's Twitter account. I have very few followers. How do I start growing that following? So let's look at different ways you can do this. The first one is, again, fundamental of social media marketing. Add value to your audience on that platform. Everything else will follow. Engagement will follow. Community will follow. Focus on adding value to the community. Focus on adding value to your target audience. Everything else is a byproduct of that value addition process. So pay attention to your content on Twitter. Ensure that you always tweet content that adds value to your target audience. This, of course, is a long-term strategy. This will not get you a follower growth overnight. Next is tweet consistently, right? Tweet at regular intervals. It's not that you tweet today and then tweet after 10 days. On Twitter, given that the feed is only partly algorithmic, you need to tweet more frequently than you would say on platforms where the feed is completely algorithmic like Facebook or Instagram. Next, we already discussed this. Run contests, run giveaways. You could even do something as simple as a follow and retweet contest. It still works, especially when you're starting out with very few followers. You can run a contest on Twitter, ask them to follow your handle and retweet your contest tweets, and you could pick like 3 lucky winners and give them vouchers, something like a lucky draw. This still works to build that initial follower base. This might not get you the most relevant followers, might not get you followers who are absolutely your target audience, but would help you get that meter moving, help you build at least a decent base of a few hundred followers, something that's respectable enough for a big brand with 3 followers on Twitter or a company with 5 followers on Twitter does not give a very good impression, especially if you're active on the platform and if your audience is on that platform. So this helps you build that initial following. And then, of course, contests. You can have contests to engage with your audience consistently and keep growing your following there. Then we already discussed tweet chats. Host them where you can to drive thought leadership for yourself. Participate in other tweet chats in the industry. That way you will drive awareness for yourself as well, and it will help you build a following in the long term. Next, leverage trending topics. This is again something we discussed. We saw examples on how you could leverage topics that people are already talking about, that people are already paying attention to get additional reach. Include hashtags. Hashtags help you put yourself and your content in front of the most relevant people, in front of your audience who are following those hashtags. So using hashtags will put your content in front of your target audience, and if your content is good, they will end up following you for more. So relevant hashtags is another way to build your following on Twitter. Then you can follow relevant users. On Twitter, when you follow about 100 people, on an average about 20 to 30 will follow you back. So when you follow relevant users in your audience, you can expect about 20 to 30 of them to follow you back, and that would grow your following as well, right? At this point, you guys should also think of your follower following ratio, right? So how many people are you following and how many are following you back? Let's say as a brand, you started following relevant people. You follow 100 people every week, and after 2 months, maybe you followed about on an average 1,000 people. Out of 1,000, only 300 are following you back. Now think about it, as a brand, you are following 1,000 people and only 300 are following you back. That's not going to look very good from a brand's perspective. For a user viewing the brand's page, it's not going to look very nice. So this is where this tool that I was talking about comes in, the tool called Crowdfire, which helps you follow relevant people and unfollow those who are not following you back. This, a cautionary word of advice here, is not something I'd recommend for the long term. Not the best way to build a following. I definitely do not recommend this tactic for the long term. But initially, when you're just starting out, when you want to build a following, there's something you could do till you build up to a respectable number, whatever you want to call that number. Let's say 500 or 1,000 followers, something that you got a base. You're not at 0 or at single or double digits. Once you've got to a decent number of followers, then I wouldn't recommend using this tactic anymore, because it's not the best way to build a following. Of course, if you follow relevant users, you are building a relevant audience. But if your users are not even relevant, then that's definitely something you should not do. So yes, I'll come back to Crowdfire in a minute on how you can use this tactic to grow your following. Follow relevant users and then unfollow those who are not following you back. But again, as I said, not the best tactic. The best is always the others. All these are much more powerful in building an engaged community. Right? Okay. And the last one is, we saw Twitter ads. So you can run your Twitter ads with a grow your following objective, where you can run your follow account ads and people can follow you on Twitter. That's another way you can drive your following on Twitter. This is of course paid. The rest are focusing on organic means, except for the last one. So let's go back to Crowdfire. Let's see how we can use Crowdfire to grow our following. Let's go to the live tool. So you can go to crowdfireapp.com. Just type in crowdfireapp.com. Again, it will ask you to sign up with your Twitter. Once you sign up with your Twitter, you will see a dashboard like what you're seeing on my screen now. On the left in the menu, you have something called keyword follow. So you click on keyword follow. Here you can search for relevant keywords to look for accounts that you want to follow, to find relevant users based on hashtags or keywords. So I'm going to say hashtag social media marketing. You can also add a location if you want to search for users only in a particular location or geography. You can do that. So I'm going to hit enter and search. It will now pull up a whole list of relevant users who are into social media marketing. So for example, this person here, social media strategist. So okay, relevant to me, I can just click on this plus button. The moment I click on this plus button, I will follow this person. So I click on plus, okay, follow. The next one, okay, this is relevant. I can quickly run through these profiles and find whichever ones are relevant to me, and whichever I find relevant, I can just click on follow and I can keep following relevant people from here. So I've just followed about 4 and now 5 people. So you can follow relevant people from here. Ensure that you don't overdo it. I wouldn't recommend following more than, let's say, 20 to 30 people a day on an average, maybe a few more, maybe 50, but avoid overdoing it. It might get your account scrutinized by Twitter. So don't overdo it. You can use the tool in moderation. And then now that you've followed them, after say a week or 10 days, after you've been following people, then you will come to your non-followers. In your non-followers, you can see who are the people who you are following, but they are not following you back. And then you can unfollow them quickly from here. Just like you click the plus button there, you can just, let's say, click the minus button and then you'll unfollow people. So then over time you will balance your follower and following count. You will not be following too many people. more than those who are following you back, right? So this is how you use the tool to help you build that initial follower base by following relevant target users on Twitter. The tool is pretty straightforward to use. So all of you, those of you particularly who want to grow your initial following, can sign up for this tool and use it. So those are the tools for Twitter marketing. We've seen 3 tools. Now we saw Tweeted to help you find the best time to tweet. We saw Hashtagify, which helps you find the most relevant hashtags to use in your tweets. And we saw Crowdfire, which helps you build a relevant following on Twitter. A little while back, we also saw this tool called Warble, which helps you set up alerts for conversations happening around certain topics on Twitter. Right, so now that we've seen these tools that we can use to make our Twitter marketing more effective, let's move to the next topic for today, which is using social media for listening and monitoring. Right? Online reputation management or social media customer care. We'll understand this. Like I said, Twitter in particular is a great platform for listening and monitoring simply because all tweets are public and the audience is opinionated. They don't mind sharing their views in public, not just about events and daily happenings, but also on brands they've interacted with, products and services they use. So let's understand how we as brands should deal with customer feedback on social media. We'll look at a lot of interesting case studies and draw learnings from them. Let's get started. So we all know that these days reputation management has become all the more important in the age of social media and digital marketing, where customers are more aware, more connected, more informed. So as you can see in that quote there, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it, right? If you think about that, you'll do things differently. And as I said, this is all the more important in the age of social media. You need to be very careful with what you are doing and how you deal with customer feedback. So why do customers take to social media? Why do they give their feedback on social media? Why do they use social channels to reach out to brands? The first thing is they don't have time for other methods. Other methods take time, right? So if you're going to use, let's say, the phone to reach out to a brand, you have to go through that irritating IVR, punch in numbers, they'll put you on hold, you'll have to listen to that irritating music. It takes time. Social media is much quicker. All you need to do is pull out your phone, open the Twitter app, tweet to the brand, 10 seconds you are done. Then the onus is on the brand to get back to you, right? So it's a much quicker way to reach out to brands where customers are concerned. Next is they've had no response from other channels. They tried phone, they tried email. There was no response. They're like, okay, let's try social media. Maybe the brand will respond on Facebook and Twitter. Next is they want a quick solution. Since social media posts are viewable easily by other people, and if you post on Facebook, all your friends would see it. So the brand knows that any post on Facebook is going to be seen by that person's friends. Any post on Twitter is going to be seen publicly. So brands also tend to respond a little more quickly to complaints on social media, and customers who are aware of this take to social media for their complaints and feedback. Next is they are frustrated. They've had too many calls and emails and they want to use social media as a channel to take it up with the brand. And as I said, it's a way to publicly voice your issue as a customer. As customers, you know that when things are said out in the open, when things are said publicly, the brand is more likely to take note. So when you publicly voice your issue, the brand might end up paying more attention. And that's why customers take to social channels, because it's not one-to-one there. It's actually a conversation that's more or less out in the open. So what is the response management framework we should have? We know that customers use social media for feedback, complaints reaching out to brands. As brands, how do we build an efficient framework to respond to these customers effectively? So these are your 4 A's of response management on social media. It's the framework you'll use to ensure that your customer responses are effective. The first A is acknowledge. So always acknowledge a post or a tweet from a customer. No customer likes not being acknowledged, right? If you don't acknowledge, they're going to get impatient. They might end up posting or tweeting in other places. Always acknowledge. It gives the customer the impression that yes, the brand has taken note and they are looking into it. So they are a little bit more at peace. Next is accept. Always accept that yes, something has gone wrong. Mistakes do happen. So it's always good to accept it when something goes wrong. Apologize. Always apologize as brands if something has gone wrong. Always apologize to the customers and tell them yes, we're sorry, we apologize for the inconvenience caused. And then act. You have to act as soon as you can and sort the issue. Next, as I said, customers hate a brand that does not respond. Again, as with everything else in social media, always put yourself in the customer's shoes and then think, if you were a customer and if you raised a complaint or gave feedback to a brand and the brand didn't bother responding, you would not like it, right? You wouldn't be happy about it. Similarly, when you are the brand and a customer reaches out to you, always respond to them. Don't ignore a customer feedback or complaint. So how do you build the best social customer response management team? What goes into building an effective, efficient team to manage responses on social media? So the key performance indicator for social media customer care is only one, and that is a fast turnaround time. How do you know that this response management framework you built, the CRM team that you built, is performing well? What metrics will you use to measure the effectiveness of your team? It is this one thing, a fast turnaround time. How quickly do you respond? How quickly do you resolve? Right? These are 2 key metrics. A customer gives you feedback or raises a complaint. What is your time to first response? And what is your time to resolution? How quick are these 2 metrics? What is your average time to resolution for your brand? On an average, how many minutes, hours, for example, does it take for you to respond to a customer complaint and resolve it? This time will vary from industry to industry. Industries like e-commerce, the time will be much lesser where people expect faster responses. Industries that are slower or have a larger purchase cycle, like real estate, for example, the time to resolution might be longer. Right? So for your industry, the best way to do it is to keep ensuring that your turnaround time reduces and you are responding to customers and resolving their issues as fast as you can. So this is the framework to customer delight. You have an intelligent team. You need an intelligent team to know what to reply, how to reply, how do you deal with the customer, how do you deal with the situation. Combined with tools that I'll be talking to you about in a minute from now. Tools that you can use to manage customer response management at scale. When you have these 2 in place, you will have a fast turnaround time, and when you have a fast turnaround time, you will have a happy customer. Right? This is something that all brands want. We all want happy, delighted customers. So if you're managing customer responses at scale, then these are a couple of tools that could help you do that, especially if you are a big company, you get a lot of responses on a daily basis. Then these are tools that help you build a CRM on the cloud, Freshdesk and Zendesk. So whenever complaints come in, you can connect all your social channels to these tools, and as and when complaints come in from different social channels, you can allocate the complaints to different team members and they can resolve it from within the same dashboard itself. So these are very good tools to handle customer response at scale. The other thing is you need to set clear team roles. So when you build a team, a CRM team, you will have an admin. someone who's heading the team. You'll have different customer care representatives for different channels. Like here you have one for Facebook, one for Twitter. Then you'll have one person who analyzes all the data, analyzes the sentiment. What is the general sentiment, the perception of your brand in the minds of the target audience? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? Then you'll have one person who's a red alert and crisis manager, always ready to swing in case of a crisis, in case something seems to be going terribly wrong. This person will immediately swing into action and try to prevent the crisis from snowballing into a bigger one. Then another point you need to note is that social media response management is not a 9-to-5 job. It needs 24/7 attention. Customers these days will not wait. On social media, you never know what could happen at night, what could happen in one night, what could go viral. By the time you come in the morning, you might be in place for a big crisis. So social media response management is a 24/7 job. You need to have team members who work different shifts, day, night, and weekends as well. For smaller brands that don't get as many complaints and feedback on social media, especially if you're, let's say, starting up, you have a small team, you don't have a specific team for CRM. In that case, what I normally recommend is having all your accounts logged into your mobile phone on the apps. So for Facebook, let's say you'll have the Pages Manager app, Twitter, you'll have the Twitter app. Whenever there's a customer reaching out to you, you will get a notification and you can respond from your phone itself. So it's good to keep all that logged into your phone if you don't have a team to help you manage this. Great, so let's look at some case studies now. Let's take a look at a few case studies and see what can we learn from these case studies. So the first case study is of unsatisfied customers going all over the place. So you can see here, somebody reached out to ICICI saying that they've tried reaching out to them in multiple places, but they've not got a response. So when a customer does not get a response from one place, they'll go all over the place. So let's say somebody reached out to you on Facebook, didn't get a response, they'll be like, okay, let's try Twitter. Didn't get a response, they'll be like, okay, let's post on forums. So what will happen in such cases is you will end up having to clean in multiple places, when in the initial stage, had you answered in one place, it would have saved you having to now go and respond in 5 different places where the customer has posted. Especially with online forums, once it's gone onto an online forum, you have to go and respond to each forum, right? So always, what do we learn from here is respond and acknowledge customer complaints as soon as they come in, right? This is another example of the same thing. This is from eBay. You can see here that this customer has posted on a forum again and it's a bad review. Now most of us know whenever we buy products or services online, we normally go and look for reviews to see what other customers or people who purchased the product or service before have written about it. And if we see too many bad reviews, too many negative ratings, normally we do not go and buy the product, because we obviously don't want to have a bad experience like other people have already said they've had. So if you're a brand, you need to be very careful about the kind of reviews and ratings you are getting across the internet. And this will happen, forum posts will happen if customers are very unsatisfied and they've not got responses from other channels. For example, here you can see this person has said money not refunded in 4 months. So in these 4 months, you would have obviously tried different customer care channels. You would have tried the online chat, email, phone, would have tried maybe even Twitter, Facebook. And if there is no response, they will end up posting on groups and forums online. So key learning from here is always acknowledge and respond to customers immediately. Next is another very interesting case study called United Breaks Guitars. Not sure how many of you have seen this. It's a very interesting case study. Let me give you the context. So there was this guy who was a small-time guitarist, and he had flown a United Airlines flight. United Airlines is a very big airline brand in the United States. He was carrying his guitar with him. So when boarding the flight, he checked in his guitar, and when he got off at his destination, he found that the airline had damaged his guitar. He was obviously not happy. He reached out to the airline, raised a complaint. The airline didn't bother. He tried multiple channels. The airline still did not bother. He was quite frustrated. He was a musician also. So he went and made this YouTube video talking about how the airline mishandled his guitar and showed complete apathy towards his complaint. This video, it's a fun video by the way. So I'm probably going to let you go watch the video now. So you can take, it's a 4.5-minute video. So you can pause the lesson now, click on the link, watch the video, and then come back. It's a fun video. It's fun to watch. So have fun for the next 5 minutes. Take a break, watch the video, and then come back. Alright guys, so hope you guys have watched the video. So this video, after it was posted, ended up going viral and has got over 15 million views. In fact, after this video went viral, there was a huge uproar across social media as well about how a brand could be so insensitive and completely ignore a customer complaint. Within 4 days of this video going live, the stock price of United Airlines dipped by 10% and cost stockholders about $180 million loss in shareholder value. Hey, that's a massive amount. Not to forget the damage to reputation that the brand had here. So, what do we learn from here? We learn that in the age of social media, no customer is small and no brand is too big. You never know what can go viral and damage a reputation that you've built over decades. In this case, had the brand United Airlines taken the customer complaint seriously, this would never have happened. They thought they were too big a brand. They probably thought, what would this customer do? He can't do anything to us. And this is what they ended up with, a massive loss as well as a big hit to their reputation. How much would a guitar have cost them? Probably a few $1,000s. Even the best guitar would have cost them a few $1,000s maximum. Trying to probably ignore a customer complaint and save that few $1,000s cost them much more. So key takeaway again is always respond and resolve customer complaints. You never know what can go viral, and don't ever think that any customer is too small and any brand is too big. So this guy, his name was Dave Carroll. He had his 15 minutes of fame. He became a public speaker on customer relations. He also went on to write a book, United Breaks Guitars, The Power of One Voice in the Age of Social Media, on his experience. So here's the next case study. This one's from Ola Cabs. Some of you might have seen this. For the rest of you, let me give you context of this case study. So there was this little girl who was about to go to her best friend's birthday party. The little girl's mother booked an Ola cab to take them there. The cab didn't turn up. She tried another cab, that didn't turn up as well. So she was pretty frustrated. The little girl ended up missing her friend's birthday party. A little girl missing a birthday party is not going to be happy. And when the girl is not happy, the mom is definitely not going to be happy. So she went and tweeted to Ola saying, Ola cab spoiled the party today. Not reliable, we'll have a detailed review tomorrow. Ola, like any good brand, immediately responded saying, we regret the inconvenience. Please share your CRM with us. We'll check back, set right and make good for what went wrong. The customer, she's very frustrated, quite irritated. She sent the number and said, now you can't do any damage control. I had an awful experience. Now, in this scenario, I want you guys to take a minute, put yourself in the shoes of the person who is managing Ola's Twitter. Let's say you were the community manager for Ola Cab's Twitter page and you had this situation. In this situation, what would you do? You know what happened? Customer is very, very irritated with you, with the brand. What would you do in this case? How would you respond to this customer? How would you resolve the issue? So pause the video for a minute, put down or think through what you would do, and then restart it, and I will show you what Ola Cabs actually did and what we can learn from it. Right? So pause the video and think about it and then come back. Great guys, so hope you guys have put down or thought through how you would have dealt with this particular complaint from the customer. So let's see what happened. What did Ola Cabs actually do? Ola Cabs sent this customer a note, which is what you see on the screen, along with a birthday cake. And the note read, "Hi kiddo, Mama told us that you couldn't get to your best friend's birthday party on time because of a delay from our side. So here's a small gesture of our love to make good. We are very sorry about this and would have wanted to get you there to have all the fun. Nevertheless, enjoy the cake and ask Mama to take you on a ride next time. We've added some credit to her account." Right? So in a scenario like this, what most brands would probably do is maybe give extra credit, give a few free rides. Ola here has gone one step further. They actually sent a personalized note to the kid with a birthday cake and also gave free credit. Right? So if you think about it, what does this say about the brand? This shows that the brand is sensitive, that the brand cares, the brand is ready to go out of its way to resolve a customer complaint. Also, how do you think this note became public? It was the kid's mother, the little girl's mother, who actually shared it. So what Ola in effect did is they converted a frustrated customer to a delighted customer who actually was so delighted that she went and shared this experience on her Twitter as well. Right? And this also leads to good PR. People start talking about it. We are discussing this case here. So it leads to a lot of good PR for the brand. Okay. So key takeaway from here is sometimes it pays to go that little extra mile, to take that little extra step to ensure that you delight your customers, especially when something's gone wrong. How do you convert a frustrated customer to a delighted customer? Is by showing you care, by doing that extra little more, like what Ola did in this case. Okay. Alright, great. Let's move on to the next case study. This is from Maggie, and most of us know the Maggie story as well. This was during that MSG controversy last year when the banned substance was found in Maggie noodles. And we all know the background, most of us know what happened. So the controversy became a massive one. It became a national controversy, was covered across the country, news channels, newspapers. Maggie was banned, taken or had to go off the shelves, huge losses for the holding company Nestle. Right, so we know the background. But let's look at what happened in the initial stages of the controversy. What did Maggie not do right, especially on their social media response management front, that caused this to become a much bigger crisis than it would have been had they managed it better in the initial stages? So MSG was found in Maggie noodles. There was a social attack by loyal customers. Obviously, in India particularly, Maggie is a brand that's very close to people's hearts. In fact, noodles are synonymous with Maggie in India. Sometimes you don't say noodles, you just say Maggie, right? A lot of us have grown up eating Maggie. A lot of us have even survived on Maggie in college hostels. So it's a brand that's very close to people's hearts. And when they realized that the brand had actually used a banned substance in food they were eating in something they loved, they were not happy. There was an attack on social media by loyal customers. They wanted the brand to come out clean. They wanted the brand to come out and show that whatever was being said, whatever was being reported was actually wrong and that they were actually clean. But in the beginning, Maggie was busy making templatized responses. They were not approaching it with the sensitivity they should have. So you can see here, there were users saying that hope Nestle comes true, there is no MSG in Maggi. And Maggi was giving templatized answers like these. We do not add MSG to Maggi noodles, some ingredients may contain, etc. Right? So you can see this. Customers kept asking for Maggi's side of the story. And Maggi was giving templatized answers. Then there's this blogger named Karthik Srinivasan, a very popular blogger. He trolled Maggi. He posted this picture of a plate of Maggi noodles with pictures from the movie MSD, which it just released then. And he says, Maggi has excess MSG, I have visual proof, see for yourself. Even to this tweet, Maggi has given, you can see the same answer, same templatized copy-pasted response saying we do not add MSG to Maggi noodles, some ingredients may contain, etc. This tweet was a troll tweet. Ideally, it should have been ignored. But even to this tweet, Maggi has posted the same reply, which is very obvious that they were doing a quick copy-paste templatized job, not really paying attention to what the users were saying, not the best way to respond to customers on social media. Automation on social media, especially for response management, is a strict no-no. You never know what can go wrong. And when things go wrong, they can go terribly wrong. So this is something you should keep in mind. Avoid 100% automation of social media responses at all costs. So this is what happened here. This cost them a lot. We just discussed, they went off the shelves, big losses, right? They were banned across the country. Then Maggi came back with a comeback campaign. They realized that they had gone wrong, and they also knew that somewhere people still had place for Maggi in the bottom of their hearts. It's a long-term association. It's a brand that has been associated with people for ages. So they tugged on that emotional cord there. They came back with a campaign, a complete brand revamp campaign saying we miss you too. And this campaign did really well. Finally, Maggi was back on the shelves. In fact, when Maggi came back on the shelves, all the shelves across supermarkets were sold out in no time. Maggi was even being sold on Snapdeal. So they did make a comeback by doing a very strong brand revamp campaign. But the key learning from here again is that in times of crisis, always ensure that you have a strong team that is dealing with a crisis, particularly in the initial stages. Automation in general cases itself is a strict no. In terms of crisis, definitely not. Right? So that's the key learning from here. Some more examples for you guys. On how social media automation can go terribly wrong. Couple of interesting examples, both from big brands. This is the first one from Vodafone. Right? Somebody trolled Vodafone saying, I want to marry Vodafone India owner's daughter by EOD. And even to this, Vodafone replies saying, please DM us your contact number and we'll help you out. Clear case of 100% automation on social media. As I said, you might be a big brand handling a lot of responses at scale, but one mess up like this could cost you a lot. Right? Similarly here, Domino's Pizza. Someone tweeted saying, best pizza ever, keep up the good work. And Domino's comment saying, so sorry about that, please share some additional information so we can have this addressed. So again, something that was automated. So things can go terribly wrong with automation. Keep this in mind and always ensure that there is always a human element to social media response management. Right? Great. So with that, we are done with what we had to cover in this lesson. Great guys. So that's the end of today's lesson. Thank you so much.